looking at the talk that I wrote a few inspiration for this. I realized I think fundamentally what I wanted to do is tell stories. I spent Friday with my sister and my great nephew dying Easter eggs. And because I was brought up in a Protestant tradition, Christian tradition. We of course stories arise about family, you know, remembering bunny cakes and those kind of things. And then I spent last night at a Passover celebration, which then of course has its own story. And Buddhism has its stories too. And you know, how we hold them, of course, part of practice, but it's also beautiful because they weave us together. So, you ready for some stories? This is from Thich Nhat Hanh in Plum Village. And we get to celebrate both Mother's Day and Vesak, the Buddha's birthday, this time in the spring. It is a very special moment for us to connect to our ancestral, spiritual, and lineage roots. With gratitude for all those who came before us and supported our insight, compassion, and well-being. So connecting to our ancestral, spiritual, and lineage roots. Shakyamuni Buddha. And the Buddha of this era. The Lotus Sutra, I think, is where he first lets out that he's not the first Buddha, that there were 7 Buddhas before Buddha, and that there have been Buddhas, and there will always be Buddhas going forward. And I think that's the point where a lot of people walk out. It's like too much Buddha. And barely deal with right here. I love that. Infinite Buddhas, always, everywhere, all times. And we need a Buddha of this era, this epoch, of this earth. Because we are of this earth. And we're all trying to figure out, one way or another, how to do this and how to be here. So the story goes, one of the story goes, is that Buddha, when he woke up, his awakening was so vast and beyond words and conceptions that he said to people ain't gonna get this. I'm out of here. And all the gods and the earth spirits and everybody said, Buddha, you got born and you said you were doing this because you wanted to wake up with and for all beings. And so he made it very simple. Not too simple, but simple, 4 noble truths. There's suffering, cause of suffering, there's release from suffering, and there's a path. Practice. And that's what we're doing today. That's what we will continue to do throughout time and space and forever, enacting Buddha's deep life and vow. Our own deep-hearted, giving birth to over and over our own deep-hearted. Caring, really. But here's some stories. So here's the birth of the Buddha we know as Shakyamuni. Once upon a time, how else could a story start? In a kingdom in the mountains in what is now known as Nepal, the queen of the kingdom named Maya, which in Nepali means love, Queen Love, was pregnant with her first child. One night she had a dream majestic elephant, white elephant with 6 tusks, coming towards her mightily but gently and melted into her. Good story, huh? She knew the dream was important, so she went to a seer, a wise person who said this was a very good omen and that the child she was carrying would be a great and wonderful and powerful person. A little bit more of the story where the king's a little upset that maybe this person could turn into a religious person, which wouldn't then be a person of the world in that paradigm, who could be a king and rule in all the ways that a king rules. And Buddha clearly made a choice that his life was devoted to the world, but not in ruling as a king of the world, but as being here as a wise human being, waking up, trying to help all of us. So when Maya could feel that the time for her child to be born was approaching, following the tradition of her ancestors, she journeyed to Lumbini's grove. It was named after her grandmother. This story is a little different than what was passed down to me, because Wendy Garland has now done a lot of research and is posing it more through matriarchal eyes. It's wonderful new scholarship keeps coming out. So Lumbini Grove was a sacred birthing place, and it was protected by the goddess Abhaya Deva. He didn't tell me. Now we know it's a goddess grove that she went to give birthing. And under a sacred birthing sahal tree, Maya stood upright, grasped a branch with her right hand, and the tree gently lowered her branches to offer Maya support. And with her sister, Mahapajapati, holding her, she effortlessly gave birth to Siddhartha, her son, who 35 years later was to awaken as the Buddha. I got to be, I've been there, the child, probably grandchild. Anyways, it's the lineage of that original tree is still there. You can go and visit it. It's still a sacred site. It's beautiful. See and feel. So I'm going to tell you a couple more stories about Siddhartha. Because there seems to be this theme about trees that run through his birth and his life. Trees. The root word of tree is the same as the root word of trust. We could trust ourselves. Zazen feels to me like entrusting ourselves to our treeness, to our deep roots, to our spreading, arching branches that connected to the sky. So here's another story about a tree in Buddha's life. Siddhartha is a toddler in the Pali sources, and in Sanskrit, he is a young man. So like all family stories, there's some different opinions about what actually was going on. It's springtime, and the prince leaves the palace with his father and family to observe the ritual of the first plowing of the fields. Doesn't that bring you right here? Just been going on forever. Siddhartha is left alone under the shade of a rose apple tree. And he says to his mother, "May I stay here, please? I feel so happy sitting beneath the rose apple tree." I'm going to read you from Thich Nhat Hanh's Old Path, White Cloud, full of stories of the Buddha about what happened under that tree. So the Brahmins were concluding their prayers, and the king stepped down into the fields, pretty lovely, and together with two other Brahmin military officers began to plow the first row of the season. as cheers resounded among the crowd. Then the farmers followed the king's example, and they began to plow their fields. Hearing the people's cheers, Siddhartha ran to the edge of the fields. He watched a water buffalo straining to pull a heavy plow, followed by a robust farmer whose skin was bronzed from long work in the field. The father's left hand steadied the plow, while his right hand wielded the whip to urge the buffalo on. Sun blazed, and the man's sweat poured in streams from his body. The rich earth was divided into two neat furrows, and as the plow turned the earth, Siddhartha noticed that the bodies of worms and other small creatures were being cut as well. As the worms writhed upon the ground, they were spotted by birds who flew down and grabbed them in their beaks. Then Siddhartha saw a large bird swoop down and grasp a small bird in its talons. Utterly absorbed in these events, standing beneath the burning sun, Siddhartha too became drenched in sweat, and he ran back to the shade of the rose apple tree. He had just witnessed so many strange and unknown things to him. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to reflect on all he had seen. Composed and erect, he sat for a long time, oblivious to all the singing, dancing, and picnicking taking place around him. He continued to sit, absorbed by the images of the field and the many creatures. And when the king and queen passed by some time later, they discovered him still sitting in deep concentration. Suddenly, Siddhartha opened his eyes, and seeing the queen, he smiled and said, "Mother, reciting the scriptures does nothing to help the worms and the birds." Siddhartha ran up and ran to Gautami and clasped her hands, and then he noticed the children observing him. They were about his own age, but their clothes were tattered, their faces soiled, and their arms and legs piteously thin. Aware of his princely attire, Siddhartha felt embarrassed, and yet he very much wanted to play with them. He smiled and hesitantly waved, and one boy smiled back. That was all the encouragement Siddhartha needed. He asked Gautami for permission to invite the children to the picnic feast. And at first she hesitated, but then she nodded in assent. We used to, when I'm pretty sure it still happens at Green Gulch, when I lived at Green Gulch, there was always, you go out, same thing, plow the field, and all the little mice and the worms and you know, it's why early on monks weren't supposed to farm, because and in some traditions you still don't, because you cause death. But we would every year there would be a ritual where we would acknowledge and thank all the beings that had given their lives for us to be here and to plant food, be able to care for ourselves and each other. So the Bodhi tree the rose apple tree shows up later in the story of the Buddha. You all know the story probably of that when Buddha went on a quest for awakening, he deprived his body. He became very emaciated. He really thought that if you just tried really, really hard and pushed really, really hard and did deprivations, that was the way to awakening. He was almost on the verge of death. And then he remembered the rose apple tree. A milkmaid brought him milk, mother's milk, warm, nurturing milk, and he remembered the shade and the memory of just being under that rose apple tree and just the ease of being on the earth with all beings. And that was when he understood that it wasn't about accumulating riches as a king, and it wasn't about depriving yourself of being on this earth. It's the middle path of just, he sat down on the earth and touched the earth with his right hand, for earth touching gesture, and said, I vow to wake up with and for all beings. So again, he sat down under the Bodhi tree, which is a fig tree. Do you know that? Bodhi trees are related to fig trees. And when he touched the earth, I think there's an image of this in the maybe the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, the goddess Pravithi. Her hand came up and their hands touched. And it says the earth shook like a joyful woman, an affirmation of his vow to awaken with all beings. Here's one last tree story, one other tree story. Tree stories. It's expressed again at the time of his death, parinirvana. In his final hours, the Buddha lay reclining in a forest grove, sheltered by two magnificent shala trees. Out of season, they spontaneously burst into fragrant blossoms, showering him softly with petals in a display of reverence, and perhaps also of tears. All surrounding trees, in fact, those throughout the universe, bowed towards him with similar expressions of fecund exuberance as Mother Nature's beauty in all its forms exceeded anything that had ever been seen before. Not only these two trees, but all those of that forest and also those in 10,000 worlds exhibited the same wonderful and graceful experience. All the fruit trees yielded out of season the best fruits they had ever produced. Their beauty and flavor exceeded all that had ever been seen. The 5 kinds of lilies shot forth from the bosom of the earth, and from every plant and tree they displayed to the astonished eyes the most ravishing sight. And the mighty Himalaya mountains shone with all the richness and the colors of a peacock's tail. So I think all that happened for the Buddha, but I don't know about you, but I walk outside into a spring day these days, and it's exactly what's happening. There's such a display of abundance and brilliance and bursting. It's like the apple trees have come forward so quickly this year, I'm almost scared. It's like every time I look out and there's so much energy, part of me just kind of wants to, it's like, slow down, maybe because the world feels like it's moving so quickly, but there is just this amazing celebration of life force. What we get to experience today and celebrate today, and with all the flowers. I mean, look at the flowers. The flowers amaze you. If trees don't amaze us, we're not paying attention. So, Buddha is not limited to one person or to personhood. It is bursting forth everywhere as life force, in deep intention to wake us up and to remember what's true. And that when one person awakens, everyone awakens. And as you over and over, as we over and over, make the vow to wake up to be a true human being and to live with kindness and compassion and wisdom, it does awaken the whole world. I wanted to fit this in, so I'm going to do it. Because we chant it, and we chant it today at lunch. Is where does the mother and child begin and end? The child gives birth to the mother, and the mother gives birth to the child. And we have the most beautiful language and image in our tradition of Prajnaparamita, who's the mother of all the Buddhas, who's giving birth. The mother Prajnaparamita is emptiness, giving birth to Buddhas over and over and over. So here's the language from the Diamond Sutra that I think is so lovely. Homage to the perfection of wisdom. You know this? Familiar? Homage to the perfection of wisdom. The lovely Prajnaparamita. The lovely, the holy, the perfection of wisdom gives light, and unstained the entire world cannot stain her. She is a source of light, and from everyone in the triple world she removes darkness. Most excellent are her works. She brings light so that all fear and distress may be forsaken, and disperses the gloom and darkness of delusion. She herself is an organ of vision. She has a clear knowledge of the own being of all dharmas, for she does not stray away from it. The perfection of wisdom of the Buddha, the Lord, sets in motion the wheel of Dharma. Mother Prajnaparamita. I so much appreciate the language of, she's an organ of vision. Like, what is the body and eyes? What is this organ of vision? That's right here. She's right here. Everything is her. So how do we see? How do we perceive? How do we express ourselves through her light body? So that's a picture of the infinite, the ultimate, the absolute. Now we're going to come down to earth, which is her too, but this is from Thich Nhat Hanh. The entire world is Buddha's body. Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Dear Mother Earth, you are the mother of all beings. Wherever there is soil, water, rock, or air, you are there nourishing me and giving me life. You are present in every cell of my body. My physical body is your physical body. And just as the sun and stars are present in you, they are also present in me. You are not outside of me, and I am not outside of you. You are nothing less than myself. You gave birth to every miraculous form of life. Your children include the clear lake, the green pine, the pink cloud, the snow-capped mountaintop, the fragrant forest, the white crane, the golden deer, the extraordinary caterpillar, and every brilliant mathematician, skilled artisan, and gifted architect. You are the greatest mathematician, the most accomplished artisan, and the most talented architect of all. The simple branch of cherry blossoms, the smell of a snail, and the wing of a bat all bear witness to this amazing truth. You have given birth to countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's because you're endowed with the capacity of awakening that all your children are too. Each one of us carries within ourselves the seed of awakening, the ability to live in harmony with our deepest wisdom, the wisdom of interbeing. Shakyamuni Buddha was a child of yours who attained full awakening at the foot of the Bodhi tree. And after his long journey of seeking, he realized that the earth is our true and only home, and that heaven, the whole cosmos, and the ultimate dimension can be touched right here with you. Buddha's earth-touching gesture, right here, this moment. Just this body, just this mind, and the entire world. Just touch the earth right now. Can you feel it? And let it touch you. You know that everything is being birthed in this moment, right here. Very fun. Blanche Hartman was the first abbess of San Francisco Center. I knew Blanche. I knew Blanche before she, I like to say, I knew Blanche before she became Blanche. I mean, at a certain point, everybody, it's like, you sort of go into some realm of like, Blanche, I knew Blanche, you know, it's like. And she was amazing. I remember sitting sessions with Blanche as a really young student and her just sitting there with a kind of fierceness that I couldn't even imagine. At the end of sessions, I would be so exhausted and running back to my room and Blanche was still sitting there, you know, it's like real, I mean, she sat like a Buddha. And her deepest intention was kindness and grandmotherly mind. And she had, I think she had 5 children. I'm going to tell this little story about Blanche, but one was a Zen archer, one was a physician, and one was a porn star. I mean, so out of her womb came these amazing forms, and so you know, like bless Blanche, bless her that she turned into Blanche. She's also the teacher of Zenju. And in the end of her life, my sense of Blanche, by then I'd left Zen Center, is, you know, when you're a retired abbot or abbess, there's a certain kind of way that people treat you and things. And my understanding is she would just walk around the halls and be kind to people. She was very ordinary. She really didn't want to take on any special airs. So here's a little chapter in her book, Seeds for a Boundless Life. Zen Teachings from the Heart, the Everydayness of Birth. I have just spent the last 2 weeks in the midst of the miracle that is birth. And I was struck once again by how extraordinary this miracle is and how ordinary. The simultaneity of the miraculous and the everydayness of birth, not just of a baby, but of any creature, of anything. While I was gone, she was down at Tassajara, must have been practicing there as the abbess. While I was gone, involved completely in this particular birth, there were happening here at Tassajara myriad and innumerable births of every bud on every maple tree bursting open and presenting a new expression of life. The opening of every flower and the germinating of every seed and the opening of every bud are all miraculous births. Each one of us is in the midst of a gestation process. Now, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. Maybe there are many who have already shed all notions of a separate self and are free of self-concern and have no more difficulty with this delusion of separation. But at least there are some who are still caught in this prison of self-concern that separates us from the fullness and completeness and vastness of our actual being. Separates us from the direct experience of that completeness and wholeness that we are. From this imprisonment, we experience a great deal of suffering. It's because deep in us is an awareness of our non-separateness. That we have made the great effort to be in a situation that gives us the luxury, really, of spending hours in a meditation hall, facing ourselves, studying ourselves. It's amazing what we get to do. I think maybe part of the suffering that's so apparent in the world right now is we were taking so many things for granted. Our lives are amazing gifts, every life's gift, and how are we going to express it is then becomes the question of vow, but gratitude. Oh my goodness, what amazing lives we've been given. Finding or seeking to find What is it? What is it sitting here? What is it that separates us? What is the boundary between this and not this? What do we imagine is the boundary between this and not this? Where is the bridge? Where is the opening? Where is the birth into the fullness of all that this is? And we work very hard to give ourselves the opportunity to bring this gestation to completeness. So we sit down today in the midst of story, our own personal story, who we think we are, who we think we aren't, our worries, our pains, our anxieties, our joys, our hopes, our fears, because we're human beings. I mean, that's what Buddha did, sat down on the earth, remembered the rose apple tree and the ease of not sitting here to become something we aren't already. We're sitting down to remember this earth body, this body of spring blossoms and trees and evanescence. Organ of vision that remembers there is no separation. And you will probably, maybe, have a moment today where body and mind will drop away. And there's no beginning, no end. It's just words, mostly just ease. There's a feeling of bliss and happiness. And we people. That's because you're not doing it right. No. Well, have a moment like that. Or maybe even, and then of course, then you'll want it more, and then you'll think you're not being, I mean, that's just, but that's what we're sitting down and we're touching the earth. It's valiant to be here, to keep waking up to what we know is true for ourselves and for everybody and for the whole world. So that the story that Buddha sat down on the earth for, and that all of us are sitting down on the earth for, I mean, you may all have different language for it, is I sit down because I want everybody to be happy. Because I know there's enough. And because I know that I'm deluded, but I also know that I have a Buddha heart. And that if each breath, this backward step, waking up, that this is intending and vowing for to the Eightfold Path of Suzuki Roshi said, everything is perfect just as it is, and you could use a little improvement. The whole world is perfect just as it is because it couldn't be anything other than it is, and it clearly could use a little improvement. So, intention. Let's keep waking up together. Let's keep helping each other be that which we know is true. Bodhisattva life, Bodhisattva precepts, Bodhisattva, yes, here I am with you and with the whole world. And then right speech and right effort and right living, right livelihood and mindfulness. Mindfulness today doesn't mean something extra. It just means don't miss this moment in the body, be on the earth. And right, the root word of right, I've been reminding all of us, isn't right or wrong, is the root word means to unite. It unites the relative and the absolute. Is that this moment is, I suppose we could say that exactly everything is right. It's upright, it's beautiful, it's whole, it's complete, and it's up to us. into each poem blossom. It spontaneously bursts through. And with each breath and each I think you all know I love Suzuki Roshi's just yes I will. Yes, I will. And I don't even, there's not even anything after that. That's just an affirmation of yes. Yes, I will. For the bird call, for the spring day, for those who aren't able to sit down and affirm in this kind of way, or are doing it in ways that doesn't look like the way we're doing it. There's something so important and beautiful as we affirm Buddha's birth, that we are affirming the birth of everything each moment by just yes. What is it? So if you can think of better things to do with your life, then I looked for decades. There must be something. And I just kept like lunch. Ending up here. I still don't know what I'm doing or what it means or how to do it. But I also know there's great joy in it. And it's really, really sweet to share it. There you go. Okay, let's do after lecture chat. I believe it's also in the chat book, probably on the first page. It's so insane. What's